Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel So Little Time, and my name is Karen. So I hope you're all doing really well, and thank you very much for joining me for today's video. I'm sorry I am so close to you right now. I've got you precariously balanced on my steering wheel in the car because I thought, right, well, I've got about 15 minutes before I pick the boys up from school. I would give you a treat by answering the questions that I've been tagged in for sewing this or that. So thank you very much to both Anne from Summer Room Sewing and from Agata in Agata's Cottage for tagging me for this hashtag. So yeah, I just thought I'd join in for a little bit of fun. So I hope you enjoy listening to my answers to these questions. So I've got them all written down on a piece of paper. So I'm going to quickly go through them all with you. And then at the end of the video, I'm going to tag 2 more people. So hopefully they will do it. We shall see. So they're in a topic form. So first of all, we have topic number 1, which is sewing prep. And question number one from that topic is shopping new versus stash busting. Well, at the moment I am currently stash busting, and I have been doing that consciously for the last year or so. I haven't bought that many fabrics new. If I have done, it's purely because I've needed it for a specific project, and I haven't got anything suitable in my stash. But I have been trying to use my stash because I did build up a little bit over COVID and the lockdown and that kind of thing. So I have got a variety of different fabrics available for lots of projects. I did buy them with kind of projects in mind, but I think as time's gone on, either that project I don't want to do anymore, or I don't want to pair it up with that particular fabric. So yeah, I'm just using what I've got for projects moving forward. So number 2, PDF versus paper patterns. Right, well, I actually prefer paper patterns purely because I do like to have the actual paper pattern itself with its nice little booklet and the envelope that it comes with. I do like the way that I can store them a lot easier. I do feel obviously PDF definitely has their place, that they are a little bit cheaper in hindsight, but I suppose if you go down the A0 printing route, then they don't actually work out that much cheaper overall. So yeah, I do prefer paper, and I do tend to trace the ones that I am, I suppose, precious over, but I probably would cut if I knew that I was only going to be making one particular size that I knew fit me really well, and that I wasn't going to sort of deviate from that size in the future. I don't know. Number 3, cutting versus tracing. So I think I've just answered that pretty much. I trace a lot of mine. I don't enjoy the process, but I will do it as a necessity. But PDF patterns, I just cut straight into those because obviously I can reprint them as required, and I do tend to print them in A4 form usually, and then if I don't tend to use them again, I bin them and in the recycling bin, or I try and fold them and store them. Number 4, muslin or just go for it. I do just tend to go for it, although I have made muslins or toiles in the past, I again feel they definitely have their place if you're making a specific garment that needs fitting to you, i.e. my Dressmakers ball dress last year. That took a lot of fitting, so I had to do 4 toiles for that, and that was definitely worthwhile because I was so proud of the finished garment. I've worn it a couple of times. Yeah, but I think for things that I know roughly what my body measurements are and the finished garment measurement, I sort of can roughly work out what is going to fit me, and usually it does work out okay. Yeah, so I hope that's answered that. Topic number 2 is fabric. So number 1, in-store versus online shopping. I do tend to buy in-store more than I do online, if I'm honest. That's because at the moment I'm not really buying that much, and I usually buy in store when I visit somewhere, as it's a nice treat to buy fabric from the shop, and I do like to feel the fabric before I purchase it, but I obviously do buy online on occasion as well, where I'm not able to get to a shop. And I am obviously gifted quite a lot of fabric as well from online fabric stores. So yeah. Number 2, knits versus wovens. Well, I actually prefer wovens. I do wear a lot of knits as well, but I do prefer sewing with wovens. I just do. Not so much viscose, but I do with every other woven fabric. And yeah, I do like sewing with knits as well, but I think wovens is my preference. So number 3, tumble dry or hang to dry. Hang to dry all of the time. I only use the tumble dryer if it's winter time, and I use that for tumble drying all the pants and socks, because as you can imagine, we have loads with our boys. I don't really tumble dry our clothes at all, really, for fear of them shrinking, and I don't think it does the fabric any good either. So yeah, I don't tumble dry at all. I always hang it to dry, and if it's obviously in the summertime, it's out on the line outside, and if it's inside, I do tend to hang it either on the radiator, or I try and lay it as flat as possible on an airer. On occasion I have done it on the kitchen table. But number 4, rotary cutter or scissors. Scissors every single time. I do have rotary cutters, but I very rarely replace the blades, so I think that's probably one of the reasons. But I just like using the scissors, and I always take my time with my cutting out, so I don't feel that you know, they're a hindrance or anything around the corners or anything like that. Yes, I get on quite well with those. Topic number 3 is clothing construction. Number 1, follow the pattern or wing it. I am a little bit of both, if I'm honest. I've been sewing for quite a number of years now, so I do tend to have quite a lot of experience under my belt, so I can sort of deviate away from the pattern and just do as I please. So I am technically following the instructions, I suppose, but I just do it the easiest way for me. But I do obviously follow the pattern instructions if it is a new pattern, and probably more so if it's a big 4 pattern as well, because they are a bit sort of less hand holding with those, so I do need to read them a lot more. Number 2, bias tape finish versus facings. I do like bias tape, but mainly actually for hemming garments rather than using it around the neckline. I do feel that it has its place, but I do prefer a facing. However, I will try and line something instead if possible. So if it's a bodice, I would perhaps line it instead of having a facing, but I do prefer facings over bias tape finish for a neckline. Number 3, serged seams versus French seams. Serged all the time. I never do French seams. I cannot be bothered. I find them quite time consuming, and I don't have a lot of time to sew, so I always use the overlocker every time. Number 4, button fly or zip fly. I haven't done either, but my preference would be zip fly because I'm not fond of a button, and I really don't like button flies on jeans at all. Number 5, button by hand versus machine sewn. Machine sewn, purely because I don't like hand sewing, and I always feel that the machine sewn buttons are stronger and they last longer. I think if I was to sew it on by hand, it would probably end up coming off. Number 6, fusible versus sewing interfacing. Fusible every single time. I do have some sewing which I think was handed to me by a family member, and I have used it for bags and things, but I do prefer fusible. But for dressmaking, I prefer the more material type of interfacing rather than the paper crispy one, but I do have some of each of those. Number 7, snip as you go or all at once. I'm probably going to say I snip as I go if I see a thread, and then I go over it at the end to check if there isn't any thread sticking out, but there's always one pesky one that seems to slip through, doesn't it? And number 8, press as you go or all at once. It depends. I tend to sew the majority of the time during the evening, so sometimes I can't be bothered to get the ironing board out, and I kind of finger press, I suppose, as needed. But I think if I had my iron to hand all the time, I would definitely press as I go, because I do think it is beneficial for the finished garment. Right, topic number 4, so this is the last topic. It is sewing habits. Number 1, late night seamstress or daytime seamstress. Well, I think I've answered that, haven't I? So yeah, I sew in the evening because I don't get time really during the daytime. If I do, I steal a few moments here and there, but it is mainly evenings once the boys have gone to bed. Yeah, when they haven't got a club night on. Number 2, slow and steady versus frantic sewing. I think I'm a frantic sewer mainly, unless it's something that I'm not sure of. I tend to take my time with it and do it in smaller chunks. For instance, I have just been making a raincoat, so that's a little bit out of my depth slightly. It's a fully lined one, and it's been a tricky fabric to use as well, so I have been slow and steady with that, and that has definitely made a difference. I think if I'd have gone in frantically, I perhaps wouldn't have done such a good job on it, and may have even ruined it. So yeah, slow and steady on the projects where needed, but frantic sewing because I want to get as much done as I can in as little time as possible, purely because I don't have that much time. So last question, tidy as you go or one big cleaning session. Well, actually, I noticed during my sewing session this week at my Sewcial that I was actually tidying as I go, because I don't really like mess. I am quite a bit of a clean freak, and I don't actually have a sewing room either. I have a very small sewing space in my conservatory, which I never used to have. I used to have to pack everything away every single time I used everything, but that is just so annoying. So I now have got a table which I've kind of accosted as mine, and I have been using that. So actually, I probably tidy as I go. I do tidy away at the end of my session so that it's all tidy for when the boys are in the conservatory as well, that all my stuff hasn't kind of spread. So yeah, tidy as I go. So I hope you enjoyed my answers to those questions. I'm absolutely roasting in the car. I need to get out and go and pick the boys up now. I've got 5 minutes to go. So I am going to tag my good friends Angela from Devon Thread Tales and Becky from Notes from the Sewing Room. So I hope you both will join in this hashtag. And yeah, I hope you have enjoyed listening to my answers to those. It was just for a bit of fun. And thank you very much for joining me. Give this video a like and subscribe if you've not already done so. That would be lovely. And I shall see you again soon. Take care. Bye.